Hey everybody, welcome, and thank you for listening to this episode of Marriage Therapy Radio. My name is Zach Brittle, and I am back from Japan. Let's see, I went to Japan for a couple of weeks with my wife. It was amazing. It was gorgeous and interesting and crowded. I saw some of the most technologically advanced things I've ever seen in my life. I saw some of the oldest, most sort of sacred, kind of ancient things I've ever seen in my whole life. And they were right next to each other, which is crazy. People have been asking me, how is Japan? And I have a hard time answering because I feel like I sort of drank Japan from the fire hose. And, I don't really know what to talk about. If you ask me a specific question, though, I can give you a tight five. You ask me about cherry blossoms, I'll tell you all about it. One thing that was cool about the cherry blossoms is here in Seattle, the University of Washington has cherry blossoms on their campus that bloom every year, and people go, and it's like a day trip that you go and you sort of see the cherry blossoms and you walk around campus, and it's really beautiful. In Japan, you don't go see the cherry blossoms. There just are cherry blossoms. They're everywhere. And we were there at a very cool time, which was kind of the end of their bloom, the pink part, and then they turned green sort of while we were there. It was a very specific, you could sort of watch it happen over the course of our time. But Rebecca and I bonded. It was really cool. We saw Mary, who was studying there. She was awesome, sort of leading us around. And I am sure that I will come to some object lessons or life lessons that I need to metabolize in the coming weeks. But for now, I was just really glad to get away. I didn't look at my email very much. I didn't do any work. I didn't read the news. That was refreshing. I found an app on my phone, or I did some research on my phone to figure out how to turn my phone into a dumb phone. So I'm getting rid of social media apps. I'm getting rid of news apps and some of my time-wasting games. Not all of my time-wasting games. Some of them I love a lot. But really just trying to get some bandwidth back in my brain. I feel like I've been going nonstop writing this book, which I turned in right before I left, and now I have to finish. I got all my edits back from my editor, who is amazing, and now I have to work on that. I'm really looking forward to sharing the book with you guys. It was a very, I love this book, and I'm really proud of it, and I think people are going to dig it. I think it's going to be an experience. I think reading the book is going to be like a thing that you do, an experience that you have, and not just a book that you read. So there'll be more about that in the coming months. But yeah, I went to Japan, and now I have jet lag, and jet lag is crazy. I used to be able to bounce back when I traveled real fast, but not this time. I am 52 years old, and my body knows it and is reminding me. So I'm just trying to stay safe and sane while I reorient to this time zone. But speaking of time zones, I'm really delighted to share this conversation today with Paul and Susie Pettit. They are in Australia, and they're delightful. They have one of the coolest we met online stories that I've ever heard that they will share with you. I once knew a couple that met because she lost a shoe while mountaineering. She lost a shoe on the mountain and put it on the message board, and then somebody found the shoe on the mountain and came down on the message board, and they met up to return the shoe, and then they started dating and they got married. And so, it wasn't, Tinder or, whatever these things are called anymore, Match.com, or there's one that the people in Hollywood have that's like for people in Hollywood. I forget what it's called, but like you can't get on it unless you have unless you're kind of famous, which I think is hilarious. Anyway, this Paul and Susie, they met online, but in a really just sweet, charming way that they're going to tell you about. I also, as much as I appreciate their marriage, we had a long conversation about divorce because each of them are divorced and remarried. And I think there are some keen insights here about how relationships work, but also how they don't. And I was really grateful to hear the two of them describe how they understood that their marriages weren't working, and then what they're doing now to sort of course correct in their relationship with one another. They were just real fun to talk to. And Australia is on my bucket list. I look forward to going there sometime. But for now, I'm content to recover from my trip to Japan. I will look forward to telling you more about that some other time. For now, this is a very cool conversation. Stick around. So it's 4:00 here. What time is it there?
It is. We're coming at you from the future. It's 11 on Friday, 11 a.m.
I have Thursday afternoon. You have 11 a.m. And
Friday morning.
Friday
that's
morning.
Exciting. You said you both used to live on the East Coast of the United States. Where was that?
Outside of D.C., Arlington, Virginia.
Right on. Okay. Is that where you both used to live? Or Paul, were you from somewhere else?
This is part of our story if you want us to get into it.
No, I was born in Australia. I went to the US to live with my wife and our boys over there for 5 years, before we came back. So we're a blended family. We're the Brady Bunch.
I loved asking this question. I grew up in Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay.
Roanoke, yeah.
And I went to William and Mary. So I am actually from Virginia. Arlington is Northern Virginia. It's not actual Virginia. It's just like, it's Northern Virginia. And then, but I lived in Philadelphia for a couple of years, and then I lived in Connecticut for a couple of years. So I did the whole kind of, not the whole East Coast, but I kind of went up there, and then we came out to Seattle in 1999. But I love talking to people who are from, or who know that part of the country, just because there aren't a lot of them out here. So
and it's like in our blood. So where were you born? In Roanoke area?
Roanoke.
Okay, so I was born in Boston, and then I was born in Chicago, but then moved to Boston and then traveled down the East Coast. Went to school in Pennsylvania, Bucknell, so William and Mary Bucknell, and then my first marriage was we ended up in Washington, D.C. area, Arlington. And I have a son that's living in Charlottesville and Virginia right now. So it's fun. It is a neck of the woods that if you haven't lived there, you might not really understand what it's like to experience.
Yeah.
And we used to vacation in Williamsburg all the time. That was where my first husband's family, we would go there. So we'd walk around Colonial Williamsburg. So I'm well familiar with William and Mary and Williamsburg. Yeah.
It is my favorite place. It is my favorite place in the country to go and just spend time. Like, if I can create a reason to go to Williamsburg, I will, because it is just
that's your
such
go-to.
a special place. And I finally went. It is, and it's odd. It's not, it's not like I like to go to the beach, or I like to go to the,
I like to go to an old colonial town,
this old colonial little like Disneyland town. And I went with my daughter this summer, and we went all in. Like, we did all the stuff. We went to the exhibits, and we interviewed the colonial people, and we it was the best. I really loved it.
So fun. Yeah.
But now you're in Australia. What? To go ahead. Tell me your origin story. How did you get there? What is your what's that about?
Your turn.
Okay. We both had we were married, and we both were going through a divorce, and I guess I can tell my side of it in that I went through the divorce. It was very tumultuous. It was not one of those like, uncouplings that was all peaceful. It was really like quite a tornado. And in coming out of that, did a lot of inner work on myself and trying to reflect. And so at some point, I forget what age I was turning, but my birthday is in October, and I decided that I was going to start meditating every day, that I thought that would be good for me. And so I started a meditation practice using an app called Insight Timer. And, I'm just doing it daily, and they have like a streak type thing. And several months later, I noticed that someone had left a review. I left a review on a sleeping meditation. And then someone had commented on my review saying, "Hey, Susie, if you like this sleeping meditation, you'll like this one too." Signed, Paul from Wollongong. Okay. So as we were just talking about, I'm from the Washington, D.C. area, highly security conscious. And I'm just like, okay, dude, from a made up town. Like, what are you even talking about? Like, okay, Paul, I'll look at that. But somehow we started going back and forth commenting on this woman's, like basically in the comments of her meditation. I mean, I think we did wonders for her, her algorithm, because it's basically like we were on, Amazon, like on a review of a book, and so we just started talking, and that is now Paul sitting next to me, my husband. So he wrote a book called 9,756 Miles to happiness because we literally found out we were on the exact opposite sides of the world. Like me in the northern hemisphere here and him in the southern. It was the exact, if you measure the globe, we were on the other side of the world.
It's like when when I was a kid, I thought I could dig a hole to China. So like if you dug a hole from your house, you could actually end up in your front yard.
Yeah, could.
Yeah.
Your whole like initial conversation, your whole get to know you is available for people to review online if they want to, if they go on this app and they can like see, hey, this is where it all started.
If it's still there from 10 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah. Bethany, sleep, it was like an 18-minute sleep meditation. Yep. An insight timer.
I think we actually blew up the app.
I love that. Can I, before we get into the marriage story, can I, what is getting divorced like? I mean, you said it wasn't that great. And, I spend plenty of time with people who they're thinking about it. They're afraid of it. They don't know if it's the end of their life. They got things but what did you learn? I don't know, man. What's that like? Like, do you have any comfort perhaps to offer people who are thinking about that the thing they signed up for at the beginning isn't the thing that they ended up getting? Like, how have you crafted your message about that?
Yeah, for me, it's understanding exactly the modus operandi of the mind. The known is what it likes. The brain likes to know what's happening. The unknown is what it doesn't like. So even if you're uncomfortable, even if you're in a relationship that's not working, the brain will continually give you reasons to stay in it because it's known and you're alive, so keep staying there.
Oh, man.
So it takes quite a bit of self-effort and courage to be able to say, okay, this isn't working. It's not working for me. It's not working for my children. It's obviously not working for my partner. If we continue to do the same thing, what's the result? And therefore, the brain's sort of alarm bells are going off. But hang on, where you're heading's unknown. So moving toward the discomfort rather than away from the discomfort is what's necessary.
And scary, if I might add, which is what feels so bad for divorce. And that I think the comfort that I can offer listeners after the fact is that both of us and our 5 children are living a much fuller, more wonderful life. Yet, if you had, rewound 12 years, we all would have thought like, oh, no, don't do this. It's going to blow it up. Like this, it's very scary. It is speaking to the point Paul was saying, like something different feels scary. And so it's like, no, we're used to this. We're used to this emotional absence. We're used to mom and dad, acting like children. We're used to, all of the coldness. And then both of us also were the ones who made the decision to end those marriages. And so when Paul just said, it's not working for us, sometimes we're the only people that can see that. And that is an extra burden. So that the wife or the husband, I mean, my husband in my case said like he'd stay married to me for the rest of his life, even though he hated me. And I remember thinking like, well, that's not exactly the vision I have of what I want to model for my kids and in terms of marriage. And yet the reality is, I'm a life coach and I coach women every day. The reality is that often we can talk ourselves into what feels comfortable to our brain in that moment and just sort of settle and get into a sort of stable misery. Like this is good enough. This is fine. And years pass. And both Paul and I now, when we look back, we're like, were we just like asleep for, 10 or 20? I mean, we both did, those marriages were 20 years long. It's like, what were we doing? How were we soothing ourselves? And humans are really resilient. We got through it. And yet doing that courageous act, as he said, and being like, okay, let me try to have the conversation. Let me try to do something different. Let me try to visualize something different for me and my family than what we have is absolutely courageous and equally terrifying to the brain. The brain is like, oh, no, you're fine here. Yeah. You know what it's like to go to bed crying, or you know what it's like to yell and feel disconnected. Let's just keep doing that.
Ultimately, Zach, for me, it was the recognition that I am the creator of the result. Whether it's in a dysfunctional marriage, or whether it's a dysfunctional marriage or a beautiful blossoming functional marriage, I'm the creator of this. Not the creator of Susie, not the creator of the circumstance, but the creator of my result or reality within that moment. So when I was able to reflect on the marriage and the dysfunction of the marriage, it wasn't about me versus the opposition, the other person. It was about me. I'm creating this. Why am I creating it? Why am I continually creating this? And that's when we get into unpacking, as Susie said, it's a survival mode. Flight, freeze or fix.
Did you feel like you were there taking the responsibility when you were in the figuring out of the end?
No. It's a complete haze. It's the same. It's to me anyway. It's no different to being in this relationship now, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful relationship. But ultimately, if I pause and I contemplate why is it wonderful, it's because I am creating that through my own relative perception of what this is. It's not about controlling you or being a victim to you. It's about sharing a journey that says Susie creates every moment as it is through Susie's mind. Paul creates every moment as it is through Paul's mind. And the polarities of what we share is what makes the total sum.
Yeah. And I do find that often when I'm working with people in the relationship still, like they're not at that elevated place where they're like, they almost have to make the other person the problem so that they get up enough courage to make the change, to then come out on the other side and see, like me, and being like, oh, maybe my ex wasn't the devil incarnate that I made him out to be. Maybe I had some responsibility, to use Paul's words. But often in the moment, to your question of, the person out there that's like, do I stay? Is this okay? That it's okay. They don't need to look yet at their responsibility. I find a lot of people might look at their responsibility in that moment and stay stuck in it even longer. Like, oh, it's my fault. Or maybe if I just do this differently, or if I don't, not recognizing like, actually, we have these two humans here, these two models, like that are different people. And is this the person, if I was going to decide again today, is this the person I would choose again? Like, is this, not getting out of that shame blame cycle, but more of the like, just sort of clearing the haze of who's right, who's wrong. And it's like, oh, actually, now that I look at 2026 me, oh, this isn't, the person for me or the relationship for me or how it's showing up isn't what's best for me. That's scary.
For me, it's just a path. It's just a part of developing wisdom. To be able to stop and say, am I entering the victim mode? Why is this happening to me? Or am I entering the soldier mode, trying to control everything on every front? If I can just make her happy, if I can just appease him, Well, neither of those work. But we have to go through that cycle in order to discover that neither of those work.
Yeah, I imagine there's something too kind of empowering about that, where whether you're in distress or whether you're doing well, to know that that comes from choices that you have made and ways that you have chosen to show up. I tell people sometimes that, like, speaking of meditation, when you can meditate and pause and create the space to choosing, options create agency, and agency creates power. And I guess if you feel like you're empowered to stay or go, then maybe you just have more peace, even if it is in spite of the brain not knowing quite what to do.
Yeah, not feeling so victim-y. It's like, no, this is your choice. Like you can, I'm sure you see that a lot with your relationship coach, like our old patterns.
How old were you when you got divorced?
I think I was 54 or 55.
I was probably 42, 43.
We didn't meet straight away.
It's interesting to think about, like, when's too late? Like how much sunk cost is too much sunk cost, or how much?
Oh, it's never too late.
Never.
It is.
Never.
That's
no. When is a use by date on yogurt too late?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that both of us are like, it's not too late. Like, when is it too late to say, like, you deserve a life of love and feeling lit up and connected emotionally and held? Like, it's not too late. That's just us not allowing ourselves to be like, when is it too late? Never.
When is it too late to model for your children that the dysfunction stops here?
Yeah.
When is that too late?
Well, and it's interesting too, because neither one of you is answering through a lens of practicality. Like, oh, the dating pool is too small when you're in your 60s, or oh, the financial considerations are too severe when you're in your 50s, or you're not answering on a practical level, you're answering on an emotional level. Because
both of us, so that gets to our background. We're both cognitive coaches. So those are all thoughts. So if I think that the dating pool is slim, what I look for is a slim dating pool, and I make it that but if I think, and I coach people all the time, like if you think it is, and if you think it isn't, it isn't. And so let's look at me. Like I'm in Arlington, Virginia. If I was thinking and I had been on the dating apps, Paul had not. But if I suddenly was like, okay, that's a small, then I get closed off. Well, look at where boom, this spouse lands from some random meditation app from around the world. So these thoughts that we're having, or that was a thought that my first husband had, that financially this doesn't make sense. And it was like, okay, maybe in our limited way of thinking. So again, getting back to the mindfulness, or the way we're thinking about it, if we're thinking about it that way, is that moving us towards light and openness and love and who we want to be at our highest? Or is it moving away from that and keeping us stuck in that protective pattern? So again, that's our brain trying to keep us safe. But consider the finances. But consider old age. But who's going to take care of you when you're older? All of those are really some limited thinking that, we definitely would point out to.
I like to say that most people don't see things as they are. They see things as they are.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're, here you are, you're together, you're not together yet. You're just both interested in meditation. You're doing your thing. You're flooding this lady's app with algorithmic blessings. And then what happens next? How do you decide how do you get through the tunnel from your house to your house?
Yeah. I let go.
Yeah, he said, "Do you want to come over to Australia?" And I was like, "What?" And I have talk about finances. I really have a lot.
Have you moved off the app by now?
Yes, at some point.
Gone to?
We did.
At some point, I was like, "Are you over 20?" And we moved to WhatsApp.
Actually, that's an important point, because we weren't talking on a personal level. We were talking on a level that was beyond what do you look like, what's your status. It was more of an interest in an esoteric
in ourselves. We literally had the mindset, he's on the other side of the world. My mindset was like, okay, all the normal protective things I might have put up as a woman, going to meet someone, there was none of that. I'm like, what do you have to lose? Just be you, be silly, be whatever is in there. And, and then it's like the TV show Love is Blind. We literally didn't see each other for maybe 2 months. I remember when he first sent me his video, he was like, okay, well, it's been nice knowing you.
I thought that he would take one look at this and go, see you later.
But it was just that okay, and it is so we fell in love before even seeing each other, because we had that, we didn't have all our protective shields up. It was just much more connecting on a, vulnerable, intimate level.
It was the essence of who you were.
And so then when we did, he's like, why don't you come over and visit? I was like, okay, I had never thought to visit Australia. That's interesting. Why not? And my friends had many reasons why not. They're like, he's going to cut you into tiny pieces and mail you home, Susie. And I was like, I really don't think so, you guys.
Susie's best friend said, where does he live?
Take you to the outback and...
take me to the outback, right, exactly.
Susie's best friend at the time said, well, where does he live? And she said, well, I've got his post office box.
I know. If I was my kid, I'd be like, come on. But sometimes, looking back, hindsight's 20/20. I'm like, see, it was safe. But it's just continuing to take that next step when you're dating. But for us to answer your question, it really was one step after another. And I think since it was built on that foundation of trust and vulnerability, that it moved forward very quickly. So, we had a couple years where we were going back and forth visiting. And then, as Paul mentioned earlier, we both have kids from our other marriages. And so when his 2 young boys aged out, when they got 18, he was like, okay, well, and mine were still in the house. He's like, well, why don't I come to America and help you finish raising them? And we're like, okay, let's try it. And so he did. And
mine had launched. They launched earlier here in Australia.
They were 18. Same thing.
Yeah.
So for me, it wasn't a matter of concern about whether or not it works out. It was just, well, what's the next best step? There was nothing to lose, and there was nothing to win. It was just, this is an experience. So there was no attachment to an outcome, I guess, for me.
Okay, so now you're in DC. You're raising your Susie's two kids. Is that what you said? Three and two?
Yeah, we have
3. I have 3. He has 2.
Okay, so you're raising your 3, and at some point you get to Australia. So you successfully launch them, and then what's the rest of the story?
Yeah, 3, and we got married in that period of time, and COVID happened in that period of time, and when my youngest graduated from high school and went off to his university, I have nothing tying me to the area I'm in. Because of my divorce, my biological family, we had some estrangement there, and I just was like, okay, why not? Really living in that leading with happiness and joy and what makes sense. And so we were like, well, where should we live? And we're like, why not head to Australia? Paul had some wonderful family here and family ties, and we could move in here. And so my oldest and youngest are still in the States, and my middle son, the reason why I mentioned COVID is because he was in the middle of his college search during COVID, and we had brought all the boys over here. I had brought the boys 2 different times. And at one point we drove by, ironically, Wollongong University, this place that I didn't even think existed. And Paul just pointed, he's like, there's the university, Wollongong University or whatever. And then when we're in COVID and I'm asking my middle son where he wants to go to school, and and he's like, Wollongong. And I was like, what? You haven't even been on campus. Do you even know what they offer? And he was like, nope, I think so. So he actually got to Australia before we did.
Yeah,
because that was my middle son.
Yeah. He arrived before us.
He arrived here.
The COVID restrictions.
Yeah. So he's now graduated, and we're getting together for lunch with him on Sunday.
What was that about for him? What's unique about him that he what part of his personality was that said, I want to go to this place I've only driven by one time?
Oh, I think, you're in this field with me. He's my middle son. He has, I will not speak for him, but he has his own unique relationship with his birth father, my
biological
husband, and that side of the family. And he was just spreading his wings, and he has not looked back. He has stepped into his amazing manhood. I guess one of the things that might be helpful to talk to the listener out there that might be considering divorce, something that comes up often is but what about the kids? And I had to think at the moment, first, is this a marriage I want to have modeled for my kids? Was a question that hit me hard. And second, what about the kids? We're putting forth this facade of this happy, healthy family, but the kids know that's not accurate. That's not right. And so what about the kids is afterwards, all 5 of the boys are, it's not even on the same scale. They're so much better. We know, I know from my background in therapy and coaching that psychological depth adds to the ability of feeling life satisfaction and purpose. And our kids, I can't imagine what would have happened to this middle son if I had stayed in the marriage. It actually gives me goosebumps, and I right now feel like crying. But looking back and seeing our boys and where they have just spread their wings and taken off to is amazing. So I did have the thought often that sustained me in the difficult times, that this is the exact experience my kids need to become the amazing humans they're going to become. And that has manifested in a way, from even the most negative, because when I got divorced, they were still going back and forth with custody, and it was really hard for me to put them in a situation that I might have termed as emotionally abusive and neglect. And I had to believe this is exactly what these amazing people need. Even though my heart's breaking, I can't do anything. I tried the court system, this is what they need to become these emotionally intelligent, resilient men. And that sort of thinking and believing and taking the action in my parenting out of love, not fear, has made it. So these boys are these men who have just all 5 of ours are men, our boys, who've just spread their wings, and they're just soaring. It's divorce has been a wonderful thing for all of them, which is oh my gosh, are you kidding?
It's almost paradoxical in itself that it's setting the example that By not self-abandoning, you're giving them the opportunity to be who they are.
I'm chuckling to myself because here we are on Marriage Therapy Radio talking about how great it is to get divorced and how you should get divorced for your kids and how you should get divorced for your well-being and your happiness. And I know that's not what you're advocating. 100%.
Yeah.
That's not what we're advocating. But here you are on the other side. You have made this decision that you feel it was the right decision for you at the right time in the right way. And maybe it's actually delayed, but you can't look back because then you wouldn't be on the app at the right day at the right time and you wouldn't have started that conversation, whatever. I'm not interested in revisionist history, but here you are now. You are two people who have gotten divorced and then chosen to remarry. What do you know? What have you learned that you are applying now as a result of what you learned? Let's just call it through failure or through the disillusion anyway of a first relationship. What are the things that you've brought into this new space that like you kind of maybe couldn't do it without?
I have completely viewed how I define and view relationships and the point of relationships. When I was a young woman, I thought relationships, sort of completed me or were here to meet my needs or were like I was getting something from them and then I had to also give something to the relationship. And now my view of relationship is that, what is the point of being in a marriage? What is the point in having a relationship? It's twofold. It's one, to learn about yourself. Like a relationship is a container of self-growth. The things that trigger me about Paul are things for me to learn about myself. And the second part of why we're in a relationship is that it gives me someone to love, to practice loving another person in their imperfections. It's easy to love him when he's picking up his socks and he's making me delicious salmon for dinner. But how about when he's like, Susie, could you just close the cabinet? And I'm, it gives us practice to love someone, which is great because that brings us back to the whole thing of like, oh, get divorced. No, that's not at all what we're saying. We have, all relationships have bumps and things in the road because we're in these relationships to heal parts of ourselves that need to be healed. And this is our, journey here on Earth School. That is, I run a monthly membership called the Love Your Life School, where we're teaching these things that like, this is part of like, my triggers are about me and these things that are coming up are about like, what can we learn together? How do we join together? Whereas before I was much more adversarial, like who's right, who's wrong, and I had to prove that maybe my ex-husband was wrong so I could be right, or I was wrong so he could be right. Instead of this, like, let's just throw that model out and let's see what this is teaching us. That has been a foundational shift for me. And having a partner then that is also coming at it from that lens, that he's also not putting on me, like, Susie, I'm upset. You need to go fix yourself. It's your fault. You're wrong. All those, it's a more mature model of relating and relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. You have thoughts on that, Paul?
Yeah, I'm just going to touch on what you shared initially, Zach, something along the lines of you couldn't do it without the experience. Now, to sit here and say whether we're an advocate for divorce or not is irrelevant. It's the experience, the experiential knowledge that you gain that creates the wisdom to be able to sit there and say, well, it's not whether you're married or not married. That's a moot point. It's who am I? How am I approaching this relationship? What am I creating from it?
Yeah.
And in that old model of relationship, I think we sort of went to it in a younger state as almost like two broken pieces. Like, oh my gosh, like, okay, how does this husband help me? And he's sort of broken, so I'm like, how does I help him? Whereas we now are coming and taking responsibility. Like, we are two humans responsible for our own self-regulation, our own emotional growth, and then together we can come together and see where that's met. It's the interdependence, whereas before we were both very much in codependence, then swinging all the way to the extreme, like, other independent, like I don't need anyone anywhere anyhow. So here it is it's like we are very aware of our responsibility of like 1 + 1 = 3 in this case. Whereas before it was like 50/50 = -400 when it shows up in relationship because we're looking for that person to almost do our inner growth.
Yeah. What do you mean when you say 1 + 1 = 3?
Yeah. My job is to learn about Susie, love Susie, accept all the parts of Susie so that Susie can be a solid, whole, one person. Paul's job is to learn about Paul, figure out about Paul, and so that Paul can be a solid, whole, one person, like a strong man, a strong woman, or whatever, and then together we're way stronger. Like we aren't, it's not, it makes it so much just overall more responsible. Am I explaining that?
Yeah, I think in a way there's a simplified version is there's a safe container where your job is to be you.
And to learn about yourself, like a commitment to.
Oh yeah, if you've got if you're in a partnership where that person is allowing you to be you, with all your positives, negatives,
and the safe container is the marriage.
Safe container is a relationship. It doesn't have to be marriage. It's any relationship that you're comfortable enough to be you, and that person that you're sharing time with has compassion and wisdom to say, "Oh, I see you. It's no different to me. You're going through exactly the same highs and lows. Humaning is hard. You're going through that.
Humaning is hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So Susie, you said you have a coaching practice, or you have a community. What's it called?
The Love Your Life School is my membership it's a monthly membership where it is like a school. Like I teach classes in there. My background is in education before I became a coach and helping people. So I have classes in there on emotional regulation, on how to have difficult conversations, on how, and then I also am a parenting coach. So I have lots of classes in there. And then I also have a component with live coaching, because that's how we do the healing in the getting the support from a professional that can help in that way. And then I have a podcast. It started with my podcast, which is the Love Your Life Show, because I wanted to get on there every week and teach tips and tricks to people for free to help them. And then if they want to take it to the next level, they come to the school.
What I want to know is, what have you learned about what makes it hard for people to love their lives? Like who is struggling with this, and why are they struggling with the concept of loving their life?
I think ultimately, Zach, it's that people think they should feel happy all the time, or feel like content all the time. Like if they don't feel like zinging, and that something's gone wrong, like an ability to, feel maybe disappointment, or like in a relationship, like discomfort, like feel the trigger and not think like, okay, now I need to get divorced. It's like, oh, no, this is the sign of a healthy relationship. This is what we do. You're just coming up against your next level. We sort of have just a view of our life that like, if I do this, then like if I, if the husband starts, hugging me when I come home from work, then I'll feel happy. Or if the kids do this, then. And it like, we're just, then what? Then we'll be happy and living in La La Land with rainbows and daisies, where the reality is, the way I see it, is that we are just constantly on this self-learning experience. And how do we learn about ourselves? Through trial and trepidation. Like I literally am living my dream life. I am in my dream location with my dream man and and I still cry. And I still get upset for dumb reasons. And it's like this part of us that when we're thinking that shouldn't be the case, we're really like we're bringing a lot of just suffering to our life, and like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, nothing's freaking wrong with you, sweetheart. You're a human. Humaning is hard. Let me help you make it a little easier.
Yeah, I think what Susie's sharing is how do I process and share emotions in a regulated manner that allows me to let the bubbles rise. Most people say, I don't want this, whatever this is. I don't want it to continue. It's suffering. It's uncomfortable. I don't want it, yeah? But equal in value is, I don't want this to stop. It's the most amazing thing I've ever had. I don't want it to stop. Well, the true nature of reality says that everything's impermanent.
And I think there's a lot in our society that emphasizes intellectual learning. As we're chronologically aging, so we're getting to be like 10 and 15 and 20, and then we're like going to our intellectual schools and we're building that, but not so much about our EQ, our emotional learning. And that is the more maturity that, many of us were not taught how to feel feelings, how to be okay just feeling disappointed. And that part brings a lot of suffering that then we aren't loving our life. Like, it is this emotional maturity, as Paul's saying, learning how to feel a feeling and act in a way that isn't so, that is in alignment with the person you want to be, and learning how to maybe, when you don't act in a way that is the person you want to be, coming back and repairing. That is one thing we've taught all our boys, that really the most important thing we want for them in future partners, two things, is one, the ability to self-regulate, and two, the ability to repair.
And how do you do that? Well, you do that through experience.
But it's not the other partner's job to teach. It's like coming to 1 + 1, like two adults coming together, and their responsibility is to learn how to self-regulate and how to repair. And then together, the unit of the relationship is a more healthy container.
Zach, if you're in a relationship where perhaps you're not getting that from your partner, when you're not getting that safe space to be able to make a mistake and repair, if you're in that type of relationship, for me, one of the most important things is to recognize, and where am I doing that?
Do you, Paul, have language around, I'm guessing that you do, around what qualifies as repair? When you say, hey, we're going to try and learn how to repair, what is that in terms of your philosophy?
Taking ownership for your part, taking ownership for your half of the road.
I mean, you're really good at this.
Give me an example.
Well, I'm trying to think of...
when I come back and say, hey, I could have handled that more skillfully?
Yeah. Yeah, or like the other day, and this is so minor, like I'm in here in my office working, and I heard him like having an episode with by himself in there with like the grocery bags or whatever, and it's just like, and then later him just coming in and not blaming me because I left something in the floor, like just sort of like, I was a little unregulated earlier there. I don't know if you heard it, but I was having a tough time. To me, that's the sexiest thing ever in a man. Like for him to own, he's like, I was just having a hard time. Like, whereas before maybe it would have seemed like dumb or childlike to be like, I literally lost my bleep over the grocery bags. For me, as like to have that safety and maturity in the relationship of a man who can be like, I'm human. Sometimes I lose my bleep over silly things. I own it and I speak of it. Like I'm not a little child. It's like, so nice.
Yeah. I guess in my words, it's awareness that nothing outside of me creates my emotions. I have emotions, but they're here to teach me something. They're here to serve me. I'm not here to serve them. If I lose my shit over falling over the things that you might have left in an inappropriate area where I was trying to carry luggage up the stairs, well, if I have an emotional reaction to that, it's not the circumstance. It's my thoughts about that. What am I thinking that means? Did Susie intentionally leave that there? No.
Yeah, it's like you own it.
Right on. Okay, so Susie's got the school and the podcast. Paul, what are you up to? What do you do with your time?
So for the past decade, I've been studying, practicing and teaching Buddhism, mindfulness and meditation.
I bet that helps you pause when you're walking up the stairs with the laundry or the grocery, or what did you call it, the luggage, to, I always tell people that people will hear that I'm a marriage therapist. They go, oh, you must have a great marriage. I go, no, I don't have a great marriage, but I also don't have any excuses.
That's a good
I got a pretty good marriage, but
that's nice. I like that.
Yeah, I do like that.
Because I've been practicing. I practice like 40 hours a week. I'm sitting there with people and I'm giving them all these skills and stuff. And I come home and if I just let that practice go, I'm in trouble, So I just try to maintain, like I've got no excuses for not being able to figure this out. Why? So Paul, tell me, why did you decide that you wanted to come talk to me and Susie on this podcast?
Well, predominantly I know how to reduce anxiety, depression and overwhelm. So why wouldn't I want to share that?
And what's the secret?
Reducing any of the anxiety, depression or overwhelm is recognizing that through the experience of them, we can learn what to do with them. So combining mindfulness techniques, yes, by all means, combining mindfulness techniques, but actually understanding that the process is through experiencing discomfort that we get to the level of comfort. So it's not like we get to a position where we think, oh, good, no more discomfort. It's the opposite. And a marriage, a true marriage, is full of discomfort.
I think it's back to what you were saying and earlier. It's not judging those feelings is what Paul sort of lightens everything up around that, like the anxiety, the overwhelm, depression. It's like, you're not some broken human model that something's wrong with you and we need to fix. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, it makes sense you're feeling overwhelmed, or like he can really lighten things up so as to ease people's suffering. It's really a wonderful thing that I've witnessed.
Zach, in your role, it would stand to reason that you're learning a lot about Zach.
Yeah, I am learning a lot about Zach. I just had therapy today, and I was telling my therapist all this stuff that I've had to like quickly metabolize because of some dynamics in my own house. But yeah, I agree with almost everything you're saying. Like, it is my job to take care of Zach and make sure Zach can show up as a healthy, functional teammate in order to make the game go better. That's the way I think about it.
In order to do that, Zach, can you see that the polarities must exist? The good Zach and the bad Zach? The dark Zach and the white Zach?
100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, most clients that I have
100%.
believe that there's only one side. I just want to be this one side.
They just want to be that, yeah.
Can I just have the up, not the down? And it's sharing with them that you need the down in order to see the up.
It's just loving on all of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like loving on, I do have that dark. Yeah, I am ridiculous. And that's, I guess, back to my relationship model, is that learning to love ourselves and our light and dark and our ridiculousness and our awesomeness and our awfulness is wonderful. And then learning to love another human, getting out of the fallacy that there's some perfect human out there that's never going to, leave the shopping bags in the middle of the stairs. It's like learning to love that person. My favorite definition for love is just simply acceptance. It's just that, not hoping, it's just accepting. Yeah, this is the husband model I have. Let me see how I love it. And let me see how I accept that humans have light and dark and the polarities that Paul's talking about.
And learning to come from a calm and centered position while you're doing it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, listen, I'm real glad to talk to you both. I think that you're onto something. I think it's a little bit of irony that we're spent as much time as we did talking about divorce, but it's just back to this idea that you have to have the downside in order to have the upside. And perhaps maybe the upside is higher because of the downside. And that's that's not something that everybody gets to wrap their head around. So I hope that hope that people will hear that and take some comfort. And if they want to find you in particular, Susie, what should they do? And it's women. You work primarily with women. Like if you're a man, you're like too bad you can't join this.
Paul's the life coach for men. I work with women. Although I do hear a lot of men listen to my podcast. So I have the Love Your Life show on all the platforms, and I do offer an initial roadmap for people because I'm at 400 episodes now. And I have a podcast roadmap, which is at my website, smbwell.com/roadmap, which just has the foundations for emotional intelligence, a lot of the stuff we weren't taught in school that helps people, whether the relationship is their spouse, the relationship with themselves, the relationship with their kids. I work a lot with parents who are really, because as the kids get older, we think like, oh no, they're raised. But no, the older they get, the more they need us in our emotional adulthood, the teenage, the young adult, yes, exactly. So I help a lot with that.
Mine are 19 and 23, and I've been saying for years that I think parenting young adults is way harder than parenting young kids. And it's because of what you have to let go of, like,
exactly.
And it's because of our expectations. We're like, oh, it's just my job to do this when they're 4. It's like, no.
You got to let go of those too, right?
Yeah. It's our expectations are off. So I help a lot of parents with that and bring a lot of ease. That's probably one of the most fun things I do is relieve a lot of the drama in households, whether the kids are in their preteens, teens, or they've already launched, and help those relationships get closer just through the parent. It's beautiful. I love it. Yeah. So find me on the Love Your Life show.
Very cool. And Paul, do we have a find you part, or is there?
Yeah, sure. It's my name, paulpettit.com. It's a website. If you go there, actually, Zach, what I'll do, I'll put a link onto the website that your listeners can get a 15-minute free consultation to see how you can bring more ease into your life. How's that sound?
Yeah, send it to me, and I will make sure that we put it in the show notes, and we'll make sure that people who are interested know exactly how to find you. I'm grateful that you came on today. Thank you so much. And just happy summer. I guess you're turning the corner here pretty soon. Yeah.
I mean, the thing about Australia, it's not like Virginia where we both used to live, is that it's pretty nice and beautiful all year.
It looks like that behind you.
All year round.
Yeah.
Seattle has summer and then gray. So we have summer and then we have gray. And but I always talk about Virginia. Virginia, where I grew up, we had 4 seasons. We had summer, which was hot, and it started on June 21st and it ended on September 21st. And then we had football season, which was beautiful. And then we had winter, which was cold and icy. And then we had spring, which was rainy and lovely. And they all started, they were exactly 90 days long. And you know exactly where you were the entire time. And so we don't get to do that out here. But
no.
Okay, thanks again for coming on. And
this is lovely.
I look forward to making sure people find out about you.
Thank you.
So wonderful.
Okay, I want to thank Paul and Susie Pettit for coming on Marriage Therapy Radio and telling us a little bit of their story. Again, I hope that you appreciated their perspective on how relationships work, but also their perspective on how relationships don't work. Yeah, again, I look forward to telling you a little bit more about Japan. We came home on a Monday, and then on Tuesday, we went and saw the United States women's national team, soccer team, play Japan. So I kind of had a little bit of a dual rooting interest in that night, but it reminded me of my favorite 1-star review that we've ever gotten on Apple Podcasts, where some guy was mad that I was talking about women's soccer. He didn't like that I was talking about the U.S. women's national team, which is my favorite team. And that was clever. But speaking of reviews, if you're inclined, go ahead and leave us a 5-star review. In particular, I'm eager to know about interviews that you've enjoyed or, guests that we've had on that you think have added value to the overall experience of listening to Marriage Therapy Radio. You can also join our Patreon. That's at marriagetherapyradio.com. There's a Patreon button there. You can follow us on Instagram. As always, I'm grateful and looking forward to sharing more interviews with you coming up. And for now, I'll thank you for the time and attention you're putting into making your relationship better today than it was yesterday.